Welcome back, everybody. Very excited about this week. So we've got Paul Ehlers with us this morning. I have met him and we have been on some projects together. A surveyor by heart, a passionate technologist. He's currently a technology executive doing some amazing work. And Paul, good morning. Welcome to the Mining Coach podcast.
Thanks, Christo. I've been watching the podcast for the last couple of weeks and trying to get onto one at one stage. So thanks for having me this morning. I'm looking forward to having a nice discussion about mining and technology and everything that we can offer.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to this morning because there's lots that I'm going to learn from you. And I distinctly recall a conversation we once had about you taking people, like I think it was a bar or some other place a restaurant where you met people, or you've taken literally people that had no experience in mining. You taught them coding and they were part of a technology solution that you were busy with at that stage, if I recall correctly. But Paul is also a surveyor by trade initially. And he calls himself a tinkerer. So you'll have to get into that when you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. But he's also a dreamer by nature, and loves technology. And he tries to have a daily routine of data analytics and everything data science. So without me further introducing you, Paul, won't you just tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about who's this person? And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. Man, I've now been in the mining industry for 23 odd years. Started as a surveyor there in the Northern Cape of South Africa, believing that you need to get underground, learn the mining side. So for the first 10 years of my career, I did pure surveying. I was lucky in the sense that I grew up in the analog environment. So it was about understanding the basic principles of survey. I remember my first chief surveyor said, I'm not going to go and put you in front of a computer if you do not understand the basics first. I need to be able to calculate peg by hand and stuff like that. Yeah. Lucky being that when the mining industry is moving from that analog to digital environment, I was part of that. So I've always had that one foot in the analog environment, understanding basics of mining, but being able to now apply mining technology in a more advanced level in the sort of digital space that we're playing in now. So for the last 10 years, I've been playing in a technology environment. I worked for a couple of software companies. I'm currently working for a software company as one of my clients. I work out of Swakopmund in Namibia, which is one of the best places in the world. For anyone that's been to Namibia, you will understand when I say it's one of those dream places you want to live in. And I basically work both in mining. As one of my clients, I still do mine designs. I still do mine survey consulting and things like that. But I also do a lot of technology implementation. So I've got the best of both worlds, really. And I think my growing up in that, understanding the mining environment, and if you go to a mining person and you want to start talking code and you want to start talking data, you need to be able to relate that to the intricacies that you find in mining. And I think that's the niche that I've kind of built for myself over the last couple of years, which I'm really enjoying now, being able to apply and make sense of just numbers and data. I think my surveying background has made me very, very logical in the way that I approach things. That there's a certain way that needs to be done. It needs to be done right, but also making sense of the underlying data structures and things like that, and being able to present that in a way that the person on the ground can actually understand that.
It's quite interesting to me that we've had so many people over the last few podcasts that's so technology driven, and our audience listening are people from all the disciplines in mining, but our technology is just shaping our world in mining, and people are getting very excited about technology. And that seems to be similar on your end, that you're really excited about this future. And when you said, we give you an opportunity to choose your topics that you're passionate about, and you have a few of those, and the technology was one of them, but you also had leadership and people and constant learning and developing yourself. So what are we going to discuss today that's, at the top of your mind that you're passionate about?
It is bringing all three of those things together, because you can't have technology sitting on its own. You can't have people sitting on their own, and all of that's going to be supported by a process. So any technology implementation, and even looking at a standalone CD that you would put on a computer, that you would install the basics of something that you put in the mining, there's an underlying process. There's a person that's going to be using that, and then also the technology itself. So I'm really trying to understand first, why do we want to make a change for the person itself. There is this inherent fear in mining, a fear of change, for don't change what is working. So if we want to try and make real change within the mining environment, it is understanding that processes, understanding the people, and what do they see in 6 months' time is going to affect their current role? Is it going to make it easier? And what is the long-term approach to any technology you want to put into mining? And I'm not talking just about software. There are so many different systems on any mine. You can go to a mine site and there's 200 different ways of generating data. My role is a lot about bringing all of these various data together, and making the people making use of this data to understand what they actually, it's not just a sake of creating a report for the sake of creating a report, but what are you actually trying to unlock? What sort of value are you trying to unlock? And I think that is the biggest thing that I bring, in terms of, I believe in building a relationship with any client first and foremost, understanding the person. So going, like I said, going to a restaurant, having a meal with someone and talking about everything else but mining, see what drives them. I was lucky enough that Sharon Kavua, anyone that's been on this podcast before would know her well, that I assisted her a while back in a leadership program, where I did a talk for them as well about fear of change, and how technology is not just going to be changing for the sake of it, but how it will impact local communities. What are we giving back to local communities in terms of skills transfer? My legacy that we're building now, and I think you're the same, is we're in the position that we want to see, what do we leave behind? We don't want to leave behind code and data. We want to leave behind a legacy of giving that knowledge that we have gathered over the many years that we've been in the mining industry back to someone. And it's not just the mining, but it's local communities as well that needs to be benefit from that. Because once you lift up that level of technology advancement, the community gets that same thing. Is if they see their parents logging onto a phone and checking a report, that sends the right message, that you don't have to go and be on that mine site all the time. They start thinking about what is possible as well.
Yeah. Our audience are people that are, I call it the 10%, go-getters and high flyers. It's not the ordinary people that listen to this podcast. They are the ones that are eager about developing themselves. Even business leaders and entrepreneurs are listening to this, because we share so much, and I'm learning from you today. But in the survey field, in the discipline of survey, it's fundamentally changed from the time you started and I started, and how things have progressed. I was actually speaking to some of my clients this week at a mine site, and when I started, we drew plans by hand, in the survey department, and we as mining engineers, you go through all the departments, and everything was by hand. And nowadays it's all digitized, and it's all in mine design software and scheduling software. What would you say to a surveyor today that's really ambitious about their career, and what sort of mindset should you have about looking into the future of where this is going, and what do you do now in the present of positioning yourself to be part of this exciting career of survey?
Yeah. I think before I answer that, I want to take a step back to when I started my career. It's understanding the basics. Anyone that's spoken to me about survey will understand one of my biggest gripes is that I can get a drone and I can go and do survey. I can go and generate data, I can go and generate results. But if you don't understand the quality controls behind being able to capture and process that data and what you're trying to view, visualize, trying to compare against, the quality will lack eventually. So I think understand the basics of survey, understand the basics of mining, spend time at the coalface. There is nothing more important than it gives you a sense of legitimacy if you've spent and you've talked the talk and you've walked the walk, to be able to then sell that skill, sell that service. Once you've done your 5 years, your 6 years, 7 years, it differs from person to person. You're now in a position where you are a legitimate source of information in the mining industry. Now you can go out and do a consulting kind of role if you feel like it. But understanding the mining side now opens up that you can now start moving into the technology side as well. I'm not saying that you can't do technology right off the bat, but if I should go to, and if you spend any time on a mining site, you know that shift bosses and miners, they are very difficult people if you do not understand their language. So if you want to be out and being a technology consultant on a mining site, you need to be able to engage with those mine overseers, mine captains, miners, execution centers. And I think it is about the basics. And sometimes, and I might be wrong in this, sometimes I feel that you could get out of university and you have been working on software for a couple of years, but you feel that you're ready to go into that sort of consulting role without actually having built up that industry knowledge. And that knowledge, you can't buy that. You need to walk the walk. You need to be on the ground, understanding the difficulties of installing a peg in heat conditions and trucks and things moving around, and the accuracy and things that's required within the survey industry, because the survey industry ultimately is the eyes and the ears of a mining site. They are the person that signs off on month-end reports. They are the person that signs off on accuracies and things like that. So surveying is not just about putting up a drone, go and scanning something. It's about, how do I present the data? How do I make sure that what I'm presenting makes sense in terms of plan versus actuals? Is my surface that I'm giving you, whether it's surface of a tailings dam on surface or a stope on the ground, is that accurate? How do I compare that against the previous month's survey? Do I have the tools in place? Do I have the process in place? Again, it comes back. Is there a process in place? Do I have the technology in place to make that happen? And the people, are they trained up to be able to make use of all these processes and technology? So yeah, I think answering that, it is really, for me, it's about the basics, especially in survey. And I will not emphasize that enough.
And in some jurisdictions, that survey appointment is also a legal appointment. It's a statutory appointment that, you can go to court if you don't get the basics right, and your calibration and everything else. There's a hauling taking place where it was not supposed to be, and maybe people get injured or whatever. So I absolutely love what you're saying about getting the basics right. Anything?
Sure. Yeah, sorry. So I'm just thinking about that. I think that's the one thing that South African industry, surveying industry, has gotten right, is that legal appointment and just the revere that a chief surveyor has on the mine. When I started my career, the chief surveyor was almost considered the 2IC of the mine at that stage. I'm not sure if that's still the case, just because the amount of knowledge that was just within that survey person. Unfortunately, I don't think all the countries are following the South African way of having a certain qualification as a requirement for being appointed as a chief surveyor, and that's something that I've actually worked with mining in Bulgaria to assist them in getting their law up to a state where they can mimic what the South African environment is doing, because they realize that it's something that is missing. Is anyone with basic survey knowledge and qualifications can hold a senior role, which should not be the case.
Anything else that you've learned as a surveyor that somebody should know that's still new in this role? I mean, there's a lot that you've learned, 20 plus years, but we could speak 2 days about this, or a couple of weeks, but or lots of barbecue and beers, if that's your preference. But yeah, anything else that comes to mind that is important?
I think the biggest thing when I started my career was learning from the more experienced guys around me, seeing how they do, what they do. I also started my career in hand-drawn plans and spending days and day in drawing plans. I've got a funny little story about one of my senior surveyors. So when I started, everybody, we drew up a plans, and when it was time for a new plan sheet to come out, you had the opportunity to do a north arrow. So everybody had their own spin on a north arrow. And I remember this person spending 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon doing the perfect north arrow. It was amazing. And once he's done, he said, okay, well, I'm going to show you this now. So we all stood around it, and we realized that his arrow was west. So he, so he ended up having to cut it out nicely and repaste it and move it north. But yeah, so if you're just starting out, even if you come from university, even if you've done your 2-year diploma, you don't know everything. So spend time with those guys that's been around the block. Surveyors are a different kind of breed of people, but they love talking to fellow surveyors about how much they know. And so that's the one thing is if you've got chance to work with a really senior guy, listen, hear, take in, because those kind of things you're going to be able to pass on to in a position when you're on that senior position later on.
Fantastic. It is incredible that there's so much wisdom out there. And as you say, I don't think it's only survey. I think a lot of gray hairs or no hairs in my case, they don't mind sharing their experiences. They actually would love to do that more often. If somebody is just open enough to ask and don't have to figure it out themselves. And I think there's a lot of pride there that, you know, I have to run my own gauntlet, but you make so many mistakes, and you don't have to make those mistakes. Paul, the investing in yourself topic is such a great conversation always, because we never stop learning. Even today, I mean, I'm passionate about learning and, you know, developing myself all the time. Every week I'm learning new things. How important is that for you as an individual, but also in your area of expertise?
One of the reasons why I am in Swakopmund here in Namibia is 5 years ago, I made the decision that I want to move away to a full-time role on a project. I want to be able to experience different commodities, different operations, different sides of mining. And for the last 5 years, it's been really technology focused. So I needed to create the ability to do that. I needed to create a platform where I know that my family still obviously is still taken care of, but I needed to get that technology, as you said, technology executive, solution architect, or whatever you want to call me today, is that I needed a place to build on that. So my investing in myself really is that I now can work on different mining operations. I can now work with different data types. I'm making time every day to learn a bit of more SQL. I take every day to do Python to learn how I can model the data in Python. I spent a lot of time on ChatGPT doing data analysis and just seeing what is possible and what is not possible. So I've been fortunate in the fact that I could go out and start my own consulting company. So if you want to be in a point where you want to be able to do that as well, start building up a bit of a network as well and things like that. So once you're ready to, and obviously the skills and the knowledge that goes with it, so that you can be seen as a respected individual within that platform in the mining environment. So it is important for me to continue learning. And I've mentioned that anyone that follows me on LinkedIn, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, will know that I post a lot about never stop learning. If you stop for 1 year and then trying to catch up again with what has happened, and just in the last year, ChatGPT has taken over, for example.
Yes.
There's so much that you can do with just pure data analysis. And I presented a paper a while ago at the South African Institute of Mining Metallurgy conference about this topic, about different data structures. 5 years ago, I didn't know what that was. It was just, cool. What am I supposed to do with it? But now I can go to a mining company and look at the data and say, well, this is sitting in Excel, or you've got this sort of database. And if you do not spend time in understanding where you want to be, I've got a clear goal of where I want to be. I've got a family that supports me in this, and obviously I live in Swakopmund, so life can't be better.
Fantastic. But it does come with lots of effort, lots of hard work. And as you said, you know, there was a lot of basics that had to be in place. And sometimes we miss the basics. And I appreciate that feedback. We are both passionate about leadership. And how does that play a role? And how do you see that shaping the future?
There's a quote that flies around. You can't consider yourself a leader if you've made one leader that made another leader. I was lucky that I had surveyors and mine managers that believed in my skills and my knowledge and turned me into not a leader yet, because I've not had someone to turn someone else into leader. So I'm not there yet. It starts with every single person that you interact with. From a miner that you walk around, from someone that sits doing just normal mine planning, from a junior surveyor, is they look up to you. You need to make sure that the image that they see in terms of is what they would want to be. I've been lucky in my previous position at a large mining company where I saw someone that had matric higher grade, for example, doing a mundane job, and managed to get him into a role where he is currently probably one of the most sought after surveyors, planners in South Africa, where he's in a position where he writes his own check almost. It's investing in them, getting, even if you create one person that you can say, okay, well, I've found a way of not making his life better for him, but I've given him an opportunity. And if you're in a position to give someone an opportunity, whether it is just through skills, whether it is just through a positive message, I think we owe it to the next generation of people coming into mining. And I read a lot about, and I think there's a lot of negative connotations. There's positive and negative around mining. There's a lot of positive in terms of, yes, the EV and the ESG, all of that requires mining. And people like Elon Musk say, yeah, we're going to be buying this kind of mine and that kind of mine. But there's also a lot of negative connotation to mining as well. Yeah. And it's up to us to spread that positive message that, yes, go be a surveyor, go be a mining engineer, be a geologist, because it is the best career out there. So every single person that you speak to, you need to be able to get that and lead by example. And that's what I've been trying to do as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the relationships it's so interwoven with leadership and building those relationships. You've now established a wide network over the years. You are invited to speak at various symposiums and forums and conferences. How do we do that? How do we build relationships as a young person, or not so young, but you realize maybe I'm 15 years down my career and I've just been operating in a silo, and I haven't been building relationships. How do we do that? How do we get going on that?
It's a good question. The way that I always knew that I was not going to be within an operation for the rest of my life. So I started probably about 10 years ago, started realizing that if I wanted to do my own thing, and that was my goal has always been to doing my own thing. So if I get access to a technology company, if I get access to a CEO, or it doesn't have to be a CEO, but to senior people, is making myself rememberable. I think that there's probably a better word somewhere, but let them remember me for, okay, he's honest, he's hardworking, all the good things that you're supposed to be doing. But relationship building it's probably, as a technology person, you would say it's probably the most difficult thing that I've managed to do. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is,
Yeah,
give me a computer, put me in a dark corner. I'm fairly comfortable in that space. So I
exactly.
think that's probably been the most difficult thing, and it's completely out of my comfort zone.
Yes,
But for me, the relationship building is the chat that you and I have had over the past. It's not about mining; it's about cycling that we've spoken about.
yeah,
It's is that when I do go back to a mining operation, that there is more that we can talk about. So if an opportunity comes up, for example, there's some consulting opportunity that comes up, that they would not remember me for my skills, but okay, this is actually a nice person to talk to. I
yes,
can relate to him, so I trust him, and I think trust is quite an important thing. Is
exactly.
I go around to various mining operations, and I need to be trustworthy first and foremost. I don't need to be a salesman. People shouldn't see me as a salesman. They should relate. I should be relatable.
Mm,
So if you want to start that process of building a relationship, is why you need to understand why you're trying to do it. I needed to build a relationship and get out of my comfort zone a little bit, um, to be to be able to place myself in a position where I can do my own thing. So yeah, so trust. And it don't have to be always about mining. There's a lot more topics out there that people can relate to and talk to.
yeah. It's fascinating, and I often say this. You know, my wife was the one that taught me how to read people. I was the same person that you're comfortable behind the computer screen and running the numbers and doing the science stuff. And I'm really an introvert. I'm similar to you. It's
Yep.
the people side and the networking is something that I have to constantly work on. And as you say, there's so much out there to teach us and to help us. I'm actually reading a book at the moment of selling, and it's all about the integrity of actually those relationships. And you've got it spot on. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
world-renowned author, and he's built great businesses. And he says, if you say something, just do it. Because that builds trust. So if you promise to do something,
Yeah.
that's networking. That's building trust. And I love what you're saying, and yeah, also learning from that. But one thing I've learned from you also is this passion for data and science. And you talk about data structures. And to somebody that's considering, what's the next thing for me, what is it that they need to do in the data space? Is there any particular direction that they must go? Is it self-learning? Is it registering for an official course? What's your experience on that, and what would you recommend? How does one start getting into this data science? But
The first thing that I've got to be honest here, that if you want to go into the data space, is you've got to ask the question, why? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to unlock? Uh, if you can go and have a look at any mining operation, I said earlier, and there's multitude of data, it can be completely overwhelming. I always say, let's fix one thing. Let's try and fix one report. That will then lead on to something else. So if there's a surveyor that comes to me now and says, I want to be a technologist down the line, I would ask them, okay, why do you want to do that? What do you want to try and do? Do you want to keep it within the realms of survey? Do you want to go into the realms of more with the mining holistic picture, understanding what is happening in the plant, understanding what is happening in the geology side, understanding mine planning? Um, Choose one thing that you know very well and focus on, how do I improve that with various data sources that I've got. So as an example, I'm a surveyor now, that I need to be able to make sure that my plan and my actuals are a little bit closer. Uh, is the way that I am processing my data at the moment and deriving at some result, is that accurate enough? How do I prove that one process? Okay. Now that I've managed to sort out how do I capture data, is how do I streamline that process? How do I automate what I've got? Is there a way that I can write data into a database that automatically generate reports for me instead of having it sitting in Excel? Fix that one thing. That process of sorting out that one problem will teach you on, okay, well, now that I've got this, now there's something else. So it is really always about the why, and you need to understand what are you trying to answer. I know that I've been guilty in the past and that's one of the learnings. As I said, it's everybody is still learning every day. Is
Yeah.
I see all of these. I see all of this, and I've got access to a lot of data sources and a lot of information. And I see, oh man, I can optimize that truck, and I can reduce that dilution, and I can reduce the distances of travel, and I can optimize your mine plan. Yes, I can. All of that, it's fine. But if you focus on all of these, then you do all of them 50%.
Yeah.
Get one thing as a surveyor that improves the way that you report. Make your life, find a way of making your own life a little bit easier. And once you started doing that, then you'll realize that the one thing that I've trying to improve, that is fixed now. That is working now.
Mm.
Now I'm in a position I've gained knowledge in that now I can go out and create a survey consulting on data. I can actually consult on that because I've learned one thing. In the process of learning that one thing, it will open your eyes on what is possible next. And that's how you go. I didn't learn ISO 95 diagrams straight off the bat. It was out of necessity that I needed to find a way of putting all of these things together. But if you've worked with an ISO diagram, it is all of these little blocks with lines that links together and pulls together. You need to understand one block linking to another block before you can do the whole holistic picture. So it is really focusing on the basics first.
Love that. I love that. Any major lessons that you've learned? We all have made lots of mistakes. Anything that stands out in your career, you say, there was a few of them, but let me highlight 3 of them or 4 of them these were like major mistakes or lessons that I've learned, and this is how I will do that differently.
I think there's 2 things that I've learned in my life. Well, the one is survey related and the other is data related. So let's start off with the survey related. So if anyone that's done survey know that survey is spelled check, CHECK. So check, make sure. I was as a very junior surveyor, I made an expensive mistake where they had to put in a gantry for an underground loading bay where they've got a crane and stuff like that, and I had to go and measure out the excavation to make sure that it's big enough for this whole gantry to go in. And I was in a hurry. It was late at night. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. It's one of those, we needed the results now, so I had to go at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was in a foul mood. So I decided, okay, well, let me just get this done as quickly as possible. And one of the backside pegs that I used to line up my theodolite and stuff like that, I didn't check the number. I assumed, it must be the right one. So I went out and used that one, calculated, presented my plans, and said, yep, it's big enough. Then about 2 weeks later, the mining manager came to me and says, we started construction, but it's not all the steel work and stuff, it's not fitting in the way it's supposed to be. It's like, no, well, it should according to my plan. And they asked me, please just go back and check. I'm like, it's fine, I'll go back and check. And I realized that the whole excavation was out by 2 meters. My survey was out by 2 meters because I used the wrong backside peg.
Wow.
So in the survey environment is always check. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I made one expensive mistake in my life, and everybody makes mistakes, and I've learned from that. Luckily, I could learn from that. So that's the one thing. And in terms of data, sometimes less is more. Yeah.
Sorry, and I really appreciate, Paul, you being very vulnerable at the moment, and I think you can tell these horror stories. But how does one deal with that situation? Did you deal with it properly, or not properly? That's the wrong term. But how does one? Do you acknowledge the mistake? What do you do in that case? Like, own up to it, or did you not own up to it? How does one deal with it? Now you've made the mistake. What now? What's the next step? If you can advise somebody, because we are going to make mistakes.
Yeah, own up to it. End of story. If you the sooner you realize that, well, again, we are humans, we are not perfect, and everybody is going to make mistakes, and the quicker you realize that, yes, I've made a fault. Try and rectify it as quickly as possible.
Mm.
Try and sit back and think, why did it happen? Is there a process that went wrong? In the survey side, there was some process that went wrong, so our pegs weren't marked correctly. That's the process that can be fixed. So can we make sure that there's a way of addressing that first of all? But on a personal level, yes, my reputation was scarred a little bit. I was still new. I was probably only about a year or two within, and so it took me a while for the mining team to sort of get my trust back. And
Yeah.
you have to work harder to get over that.
Yeah.
That was what's needed. I needed to prove them I actually know what I'm doing. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, own up. Don't say it wasn't my fault. That does not solve anything. Um, like I said, I realized that the reasons why I made that was because I was in a hurry. So
Yeah.
I was in a hurry. I didn't want to go and do it. So all of those reasons made me realize, okay, well, I'm proud to be a surveyor. I will always be. I love being. My dad was a surveyor as well, so I think it was in my blood. Um, so yeah, own up to it, and then work hard at proving to people that yeah, you know what you're talking about, and you should be there.
Yeah. If I may, just, and this conversation is not about me, but it's about learning from you. But I can just share with our listeners the same thing, that I've not come across one manager, production manager, COO, CEO, doesn't matter where I was in my career, supervisor, that didn't appreciate the honesty of owning up to the mistake I made and the willingness to fix that mistake and build trust again. But I've seen many of my colleagues land up in big trouble because they didn't own up, and they tried hiding. And everybody, the second time you may get away with it, the third time people know you. They know that you're lying. They know that they can't trust you, and it just blocks your career right there and then. And so, yeah, thank you for being vulnerable in that one. I interrupted you. You were saying that was the one mistake, and then I interrupted you. I don't know if I helped you lose your train of thought there, but you, if
No,
you
not
still
really.
remember.
No. Yeah, I just want to finish that one. So when I did present the final results, I actually put in extra effort to make sure, and I put extra graphics. And that stage, we had a computer, so I could draw up the sections, proper sections, and I presented that to the underground mining manager at 6 in the morning. So he showed up at 7, and it was on his desk. So at about 7:30, he calls me in and says, "Brilliant, this is what we wanted. Is this right?" I said, "Yes, this is right, sir." At that stage, I still call him sir. I'm still junior. Um, so he told me I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, "Look, this happens. This happens. Anyone's going to make a mistake. Uh, no lives were lost. There wasn't a safety concern because of this. So learn from this. We're happy that you own up to this and move forward. You're going to have to work harder." And that's one of the things he told me. Look, it's going to take a while for people to trust you again. It is what it is. Just move on and learn harder, work harder, and make sure that it does not happen again. And I think that stuck with me. That he made the time at that stage. As I remember, if you're a junior, if you've just been in around and you're a junior surveyor, and the mining manager, underground mining manager, calls you into his office, you stand there like all parade, um, scared. Okay, am I going to be fired now? And for him to just take that little bit of time to motivate you,
Yeah.
and that comes back to I've had his trust. He trusted me enough to be able to share that bit of knowledge with you as well. He could have gone he could have gone the opposite and said, "Please, this is not tolerated," and berated me. But he did not berate me in a single time. It's about understanding that yes, I made a mistake, and both of us, and we moved forward together. And I still appreciate that little bit of confidence that he showed at me up until today.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, let's carry on then. If you said the second bit was just about, now we're talking about the realms of data. Sometimes I think I mentioned it earlier on about the basics. Sometimes less is more. Try not to solve everything all at once. It's very easy in today's space that you want to be everything to everyone. You want to try and solve all the mining problems all at once by using the various data sources you've got of that. So yes, it is. I've tried in the past trying to do 200 things at the same time. But it comes back to what I said earlier, is just keep it basic. Less sometimes is more. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons. It doesn't cost anything like the previous vault, but it's something that I'm still learning at.
Okay, fantastic. I realize we've gone close on 40 minutes in this one.
Wow.
It's been a deep conversation today. I still want to understand the dreamer and the thinker part of you. Is there anything that you would like to share with us in closing, maybe, and last a couple of thoughts on closing and what you want to share and what you're willing to share with us today?
Yeah, look, I'm one of those quintessential positive people. I just believe in positivity in person and the people. I believe in positivity in the world. I don't watch a lot of news. Maybe it's just my nature that I don't want to see what's happening out there in the world. The way that I raise my children, sometimes might say it's a little bit in isolation. So the dreamer in me is that I just want the best for people around me. I'm very passionate about giving back, about spending time with the the leaders of tomorrow, even the people that I work with in some of the companies. I love taking time out and teaching them a tool and a software, for example. I really like that. And I think the positivity, sometimes you need to be that positive person in the world that we're living today. And I try to be that. I try to be that example of that it is possible.
Fantastic. It's been a fantastic conversation with you today. I'm excited, Paul, for your future. I know you're working with some big clients there. We see the logo there. It's not about marketing them, but you are obviously moving and shaking quite a bit of space there. And we just want to thank you for your willingness to be on the show and give back and share with us in being vulnerable today. And I'm sure we're gonna hear lots about how things are moving in your space, and I'm very excited. If people want to reach out to you, you've mentioned you've got a very active LinkedIn profile, and I've certainly followed what you are saying. I love every time you've been in a mine site, and as you say, you do come across very positively and bringing the energy over in those posts on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for your time today. It's been phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christo. And just a closing, I want to congratulate you on this platform that you've created. And I think the community should really appreciate what you are doing in terms of giving back through these talks and through getting through these engagements. So congratulations to you as well, Christo.
Thank you very much. That's appreciated. Thanks, Paul. And we'll see each other somewhere at a mining site anytime soon or at a conference.
Yeah, definitely. Be around.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So let's recap the conversation with Paul today. Really had some fun, and it was so good seeing him again. So 4 things that stood out for me today, and I again learned from this. Stick to the basics, number 1. Secondly, start with your why. Number 3, do one thing very well, learn from that, and use that knowledge to solve the next problem. And finally, number 4, own up to your mistakes. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Give us your feedback. You know where to reach us, www.theminingcoach.com. If you need some one-on-one coaching, those services are also offered, and mentoring. And we look forward to seeing you back at the next recording. Cheers. Bye-bye.